Hi friends, I hope everyone's doing well. I kept out a few transparent papers that I made in my previous video to use for this collage. I'm not sure how many I'll be using, but I wanted to have enough out to have options. These are monoprinted deli papers. I'm definitely using these two gray painted tissue papers to test to see if one type is better than the other. I marked each one so I knew which one was the art tissue paper and which one was the gift tissue paper. And I kept out two more. This is gift tissue paper, and this is art tissue paper. Along with the transparent papers, I brought out a lot of monoprinted and absorbent ground painted papers that are on either 70-pound or 80-pound drawing paper. I'm not sure of the design of this collage, so I wanted enough paper options. One more thing, I'm covering the whole spread in this sketchbook, so I have room to use as many transparent papers as possible. This is the sketchbook that has perforated pages, so I put wax paper behind each page. I'll be using liquid glue, and I don't want the pages to stick together if some of the glue seeps through the perforations. I like putting acrylic medium in a separate container while working. This keeps the medium in the jar pristine and doesn't dry it out. I'm starting by cutting sections of both gray tissue papers and placing them in different directions so I can remember which one is which. As I mentioned in my previous video, I painted both gray to compare both types of tissue paper to see if there's a difference. Both took the paint well. Now I want to see how each one works layered with other transparent and non-transparent papers. I'm not gluing down the transparent papers right away. My thought process is to have other papers partially or completely underneath them. Also, as I mentioned, I don't have the design thought out. So as I'm working on the collage, I'm auditioning the papers and their placement. This is 70-pound drawing paper that has absorbent ground applied first, then black acrylic paint. It gives a wonderful textural effect. I have a video where I show how I make these papers that I'll link in the description area, along with the video showing how I made the transparent papers. I chose this black paper because it contrasts with the gray and the red transparent papers. Also, it'll be somewhat visible underneath each of those papers. I'm auditioning the papers that have white with gray circles and white with black circles. I wasn't sure if the gray circles would be visible enough under the gray transparent paper. Even though this pink paper is a light value and isn't too visible underneath the gray paper, I decided to use it in this area because I needed to add a light value to the collage. I decided on the white with black circles paper because it has light and dark values. The black circles will be more visible underneath the gray transparent paper than the gray circles. I just needed to cut a larger piece of it, so more of it will be visible under the gray transparent paper. To balance the bright red plaid papers, I decided to add another piece of it in this location. Having 3 elements in these areas will help guide the viewer's eyes around the collage. Also, I like to include odd number of color elements if possible. It's visually pleasing to me. As you will see, I added a 3rd element for some of the other papers as well. I'm using my smoothing tool to crease the paper. I want to make sure it won't buckle when the sketchbook is closed. I thought the collage needed another red element, but I didn't want to use another piece of the red transparent paper. I wanted a paper with a heavier weight to it. Also, this monoprinted paper isn't an exact color match, which I like. I think it's more visually pleasing to have various shades and patterns of a color. Now I'm ready to glue down the first gray transparent paper, which is the art tissue paper. There's enough transparency once the acrylic medium is applied on top. I like that the gray acrylic paint seems to have melted into the tissue paper, so none of it was removed or bled out. Also, it didn't tear as I applied the acrylic medium on top and when I lifted sections of it to apply more medium on the paper underneath it. The red plaid paper is gift tissue paper. It didn't tear as well when applying the acrylic medium, and none of the paint was removed or bled out. There's enough transparency so you see some of the black paper and the black circles underneath it. I brought out this expressive black paper that was painted on art tissue paper. I wanted another element that was high contrast that was one of the tissue papers to avoid having too many mid-tone values. I love the sections where the unpainted tissue paper overlaps the gray tissue paper. This is the gift tissue paper. It seems to work the same as the gray art tissue paper. There's the same amount of transparency over the black paper and the black circles paper. It didn't tear while applying the acrylic medium. Also, the gray paint wasn't removed or bled out. So after this test, I don't think there's a difference between the two types of tissue paper when painting on top. The gift tissue paper is less expensive than the art tissue paper. If you're on a budget and want to make this type of painted paper, then give gift tissue paper a try first. As I finish the collage, I'll add music and come back at the end of the video to add my final thoughts. As I found, I think there isn't any difference between painting gift tissue paper and art tissue paper. When I previously made painted tissue paper, I applied acrylic medium first to strengthen it. I didn't like how it changed the texture and the opacity of it. That's why I omitted that step this time. I like the transparency of the papers without applying acrylic medium first, but that's my personal preference. I did get a comment on my previous video about monoprinting using wet strength art tissue paper. The art tissue paper I used is considered wet strength, and it tore when I pulled it up from the gel plate. That's why I didn't monoprint tissue paper this time around, but it could have been a user error on my part, so I will try to monoprint with it again in the future. If I get different results, then I'll make another video. I ended up not using any of the monoprinted deli papers, but I will use it in future videos. Let's go over the design of this collage. To me, it's more of a textile design than an art collage, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Part of it is the overall design. Also, I can see how it could easily be put into repeat, which makes it more of a textile design. It is a successful test of using painted art and gift tissue papers, which was my main goal. One more thing, I like to include grayscale versions of my collages so you can see the different values. I hope you found this video helpful. I encourage you to make and use transparent papers. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching. Take care.